Today's episode is brought to you by FantasyChamps.com, the official trophy partner of the Fantasy Footballers podcast. If you have a league that you love, you need to go over to FantasyChamps.com, get a trophy, get a ring, get a belt, get a draft board. This is the place to get your hardware for your league. Get something worthy of your fantasy football league at FantasyChamps.com and use the promo code BALLERS to save 10%.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Let's talk football.
Okay, that sounds great.
It's a football day. We are mixing it up.
I don't know why. It's going to be a great day.
We're going to mix it up. We're going to talk fantasy football on the podcast today.
As opposed to
every other day.
All right.
We're really a political show normally, right? Isn't that how it works? No, we're not. Andy, Mike, and Jason back on the podcast. Mike, where can they find you on Twitter?
They can find me at FFHitman. You may notice that it's not a verified account, but that's all right. It's still
you.
I promise that's me.
Yeah.
But only if it's at FFHitman, because there are plenty others.
There are.
It's too dangerous of a name to be verified.
Ooh, I'm a dangerous man.
Yes, you are. Jason, where do they find you?
At JasonFFL, and you'll notice that blue check mark.
Yeah, there's a blue check mark?
Yeah.
We've confirmed Jason is Jason.
There's a lot of Jerome Brown all over his Twitter.
Oh, yeah. Jerome Brown. I've been saying it for,
Just talking about the number 2 wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals.
If you want the earlier takes, you follow us on Twitter, because I've been talking Jerome Brown up for a couple weeks over there.
He really has. I got to give you credit for that one.
Thanks.
Because I didn't think it would come to fruition, but then, John Brown, I feel bad for him. Doesn't look like he's going to be healthy maybe ever. I mean,
it's funny
it's
when you talk
depressing.
when you talk about Jerome Brown on Twitter, people respond about, he's got huge upside, but he's got hamstring problems right now.
They all think
it's John Brown. There are 2 J. Brown wide receivers for the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
Jerome Brown is the one that's 6'2" and runs like a gazelle.
You can find me at Andy Holloway. The show is at the FF Ballers. The website's thefantasyfootballers.com. We're going to get right into it on today's show. By the way, we have the rest of our quarterback rankings. We're going to go basically 11 through 24 on the show today. We have a bunch of news to catch you up on, including the Ezekiel Elliott situation and what to expect. And we're going to start out kind of debating a situation that is inching closer to the season. We've had a lot of fantasy owners show concern, and rightfully so, for Andrew Luck's situation, right? We're inching towards the regular season. Preseason week 2 is here, and Le'Veon Bell's still holding out. So, quick question of the day, guys. What is your level of concern for the Le'Veon Bell situation? How much does it affect how you will rank him? Is there a point in which you will downgrade him? What do you think about Lev Bell's situation? He seems to cause a lot of drama in the offseason for fantasy owners.
I would say that, generally speaking, when a running back is holding out, I do not like it. I think that it increases their chance of getting hurt early on in the season because they're not preparing their body for actual football action. And the good news for Le'Veon Bell is, I guess it's good or bad, however you want to look at it. He's been suspended before, and when you're suspended, you cannot do anything with the team, right? You can't practice with the team. You cannot work out with the team. You are suspended. So we have at least some recent history of Le'Veon Bell missing that practice time with his team, but showing back up when the lights were on, and he was perfectly fine, an absolute stud of a fantasy football running back.
Is there a debate to be had, though, that he wasn't perfectly fine? I mean, he's played 6 games in 2015. He played 12 last year.
He only played 12 last year because he was suspended for 3, and then he sat out the last week.
He does have a bit of an injury history.
No, certainly does. That's why David Johnson is my number 1,
sure,
is because Lev Bell just has a couple of questions. Otherwise, if Le'Veon Bell had no suspension risk, none of these past injuries, Le'Veon Bell would be my number 1 guy. But I'm just saying, we've seen him skip things, whether it was voluntary or involuntary, and he was fine. So I'm not going to adjust his rankings.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I do worry a little bit more. I've bumped up his risk rating because when you hold out, and we've seen it before several times in training camps where a player holds out, they get into training camp late, and then they come up with a hamstring injury or something like that. That's my only concern with him. But I already had that concern, right? Injury history was already there. So, I mean, he's not enough concern to drop even to my number 3 spot. So I guess that says I don't care. He's good enough for the risk.
There was some There was some optimism, some hope that the Devonta Freeman contract would set some sort of precedent that helps Lev Bell get this contract locked up, get it done. Hasn't happened, and so we wait and we see what happens. I don't think
Lev Bell wants to be there.
Well, and Le'Veon Bell had said
he wants to be paid. He wants to be.
Yes.
His quote was he wants to be valued.
Well, I thought he had said he wants to be paid like a number 1 running back, and also like a top receiver.
Yeah.
So inferring that, I mean, he wants.
Welcome back to the Jimmy Graham debate of old. Remember when Jimmy Graham, he didn't want to get paid like a tight end.
When he switched his Twitter to pass catcher.
Yeah, yeah. But we talk about him. David Johnson, Lev Bell, we talk about them as 2-1. They really are for those teams.
Wide receivers.
Yeah.
It's
but you won't get paid like one, and that's Mama, don't let your kids grow up to be running backs. It's just not a good business decision.
All right, we're going to move on into the news and notes. From time to time, we love to read iTunes reviews here on the show from the listeners. Look, you're why we do this show. We have the best listeners in the podcast space without question. So
scientifically proven.
Scientifically proven. I will prove it to you right now.
Review-a-Saurus Rex.
This one comes in from Odd Accent from the United Kingdom of Great Britain. Oh, bonjour. They say 5 stars. It's not a podcast. It's a whole other world. Thanks so much, guys, for what you've created. I signed up just to get some tips and found myself walking through the wardrobe into a whole other world of fun. I'm now in a Foot Clan league with a great bunch of people and now get even stranger looks than usual while walking the dog as I laugh out loud to player nicknames, movie references, and flexible use of grammar. You're all great. Well, when he or she says you're all great, I think he's talking about the Foot Clan here because truly, I mean, he's joined in.
Welcome
to
to Narnia.
Welcome to Narnia Fantasy Football Edition.
Thank you very much for your reviews. They help the show out a lot over on iTunes or wherever you're listening. We really appreciate them. We appreciate your subscribes. We're going to be here with you all season long, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, FootClanGiveaway.com. We're giving away an autographed David Johnson jersey. If you want to get in on that, head over to FootClanGiveaway.com.
News and notes from around the league.
Here's a fun fact. We have a photograph deal with the Associated Press for use of photos on the website and things like that. And Jason has browsed through the teams in the past and organized the pictures, and he just happened to notice that for Philadelphia, long ago, right, there were no team photos for 2 players.
That is correct. Apparently, when the teams got together and said, "Hey, it's the day to take photos. Make sure you show up," 2 players were not invited or had other things going on. That was
similar last names:
Ryan Mathews and Jordan Mathews.
And now they're both off the team.
The Eagles have released Ryan Mathews. He did pass a physical upon his release. Like, hey, you're looking good. Goodbye.
Well, it's because they had to do that. If you're not aware of what the situation was, he had to be cleared by this physical, or they would owe him a large amount of money when they cut him for an injury settlement.
You think he's sitting in there just going, "Ooh, that hurts. Ah, ooh, that hurts."
Well, that's just Ryan Mathews living day to day. But now Ryan Mathews is free to go and destroy some sort of fantasy football running back situation.
If you're playing best ball, I often grab Ryan Mathews in that 16th, 17th, 18th round because he'll sign somewhere, especially if another running back gets injured and they're looking around. Ryan Mathews is still a quality back. He was just too expensive to keep for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, Ezekiel Elliott has officially appealed his 6-game suspension. Per Adam Schefter, a hearing must be scheduled within the next 10 days. If you read the provisions in the collective bargaining agreement for the NFL, it is very I guess the word would be liberal in the fact that, look, the commissioner has a right to punish a player, not arbitrarily, but with cause, and evaluated not by the law, but by how that player reflects on, as Mike said, the shield, right? How it reflects on the league. They have a right to, at their discretion, punish a player. That is their right. That is the rule. A lot of people think that this appeal, it sets up a situation very similar to Ben Roethlisberger, where the NFL wanted a 4-game suspension, suspended him 6 games, appeal process, it might be reduced to 4. But if this process drags on, all of a sudden Zeke is playing in the beginning of the season, and there are more question marks.
The hearing is scheduled.
It is, but that hearing
29th.
is not necessarily a completion of
but
the
I'm
entire
saying
process.
August 29th is when things will start moving forward. There's not going to be any kind of updates until that happens.
But that's a huge problem.
It's
the majority
a big
of drafts
problem.
happen on the 26th of August or in that general vicinity. If the hearing is the 29th of August and we still don't have – I mean, a lot of people are going to be rearview mirror of their drafts.
Yeah, when you could have a Lane Johnson situation from last year where somehow things get pushed down the line. Zeke plays 4 or 5 weeks, and then the banhammer still remains. Now he's missing 6 games right in the middle of the season, including possibly early fantasy playoffs. So
that's why I think this thing
is just, oh, man.
I think it's going to be 4 games.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be 4 games, and I think, look, in the end, he's going to have to decide to fight this forever, risk a more important part of the season, or just take it and get 4 games, win your appeal to a degree.
4, I mean, then the people who are drafting Zeke in the 3rd, I think you're
going to get a good payoff.
Winning.
Yep.
But that's what Elliott. It's hard to give any strong fantasy advice on how to treat the situation. This is
no risk it, no biscuit.
Exactly.
Mike.
This is up to you. How aggressive do you want to be? How big of a chance do you want to take with an early pick?
A ton of players returned to practice. Amari Cooper, Bilal Powell, Doug Baldwin, DeMarco Murray. One player that didn't was Breshad Perriman of the Baltimore Ravens. Grade 2 hamstring strain. That's normally a month or more. This is unfortunate for Breshad Perriman. I feel bad for the guy because clearly has a lot of talent, but can't stay healthy. Kevin White, another player that neither of them had a very refined route tree, and you can't get on the field and become acclimated to NFL DBs when you're injured. So it seems hard to project a future for them. I don't think historically you see players that have missed this much time in their first couple of years turn out to be what they were projected to be.
Yeah, he's never going to be an NFL superstar. If you're in a dynasty league and you think it will happen, I don't believe it will ever come to fruition. Joe Flacco will be the quarterback there, for the foreseeable future, and they've never developed something special. The real issue here, I want to move Jeremy Maclin up the more that he is solidified as the number 1, but I am still concerned with the Joe Flacco injury. They say he's going to miss the preseason, and then he'll play week 1. That's never a confidence boost, especially for a new wide receiver who now has little to no reps with Joe Flacco.
So Flacco and Andrew Luck are out at the arcade all day during camp.
Yep, that's what they do.
And then they're waiting to get
playing asteroids.
Right. Jason, you talked to one of the beat writers for Baltimore in regards to Ben Watson, and you haven't heard a lot of buzz around him despite the fact that the tight ends are gone. I mean, you have no Dennis Pitta, no Crocky Gilmore. Ben Watson seems like the next man up, but is he really, and is there any reason to be excited for him?
Yeah, I wasn't sure Ben Watson's health. Nothing really has been reported on it, and so I was talking to the beat writer trying to get some information. They said Ben Watson is healthy, and they expect him to maybe be the number 2 tight end. I mean, what they're seeing in practice does not lead me to believe that Ben Watson will take over the Dennis Pitta role, which previous to that conversation is what I had kind of been projecting there. So, there are so many receptions up for grabs here. That's why I like Jeremy Maclin and Danny Woodhead, but I don't know who.
Does that make Nick Boyle a
Nick
sleeper?
Boyle is who they said they were projecting as the #1 tight end. So, yeah, I would say that's the name. At least be familiar with it so that if when week 1 comes, if he ends up with, 9 targets like the tight end sometimes gets there.
Something could happen there.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, it was mentioned to us that we had neglected to speak on Danny Woodhead in our RB ranking show. Like he was, because he's inside our top 24, but he was completely omitted.
I'm thinking he must not have been at the time in our top 24. When
Oh,
we did
you
this
think
show.
he is now?
Yes, he
Okay.
is now. Yeah, but that's the reason.
Okay. I thought maybe we had just oversight type of situation.
Just Danny Woodhead's par for the course, right?
Let me ask you a question.
Just overlooked his entire career.
Perfect example. Mike, let me ask you a question. Why do you play fantasy football?
Because it's fun.
Okay. Well, look, the NFL has reported it will loosen its dress code.
Yes.
In a memo yesterday, players can now wear more personalized cleats. This goes along with the amazing news that they can also celebrate touchdowns
What is happening,
like a
NFL?
normal human being.
Here's my hypothesis. The NFL has been the get off my lawn league for so long. Last year, there was finally a scare. They got spooked because ratings. It was a big deal made of the ratings are down for the NFL, and they went, crap, these millennials and their ruining of everything, and the young kids and their video games.
Is the NFL wearing boxers now?
They've
The whitey tighties are not
boxer briefs.
Well,
Boxer
no, I don't
brief.
think they've made it to boxer briefs because the real transition is briefs, boxer,
Yeah,
boxer briefs.
I guess you are.
Oh, okay.
So they're still in that adolescent boxer phase, but
Is Commando the final stage? I'm just
that's when the rules are gone.
There-
There are no more rules.
loving every minute of it.
But I honestly think that they saw that like maybe we're not as invincible as we thought. We can't just be this the top button has to be done. Like people want fun. It's sports entertainment for a reason. And they're going to give it to us.
This
which
season,
is great.
This season's going to be a blast. So many things are lining up for an incredible 2017 NFL season, and we're only weeks away.
Let's talk quarterbacks, guys.
Quarterbacks.
Real quick, I
Yeah.
want to correct myself. We did just miss Danny on that show.
The judge stays on us. Judge
we
Giamatti.
just missed Danny Woodhead. Where was he in the top 24?
16.
Oh, man.
This is exactly what you said. I mean, that Danny Woodhead is overlooked. I think it's because he's so short. You never see him.
To be fair,
Poor Danny Woodhead.
we make font size on our show docs. Font size is
Proportionate to height?
Proportional to height. So he's very, very small font.
He was at the 6-point font,
yeah, very fine.
hidden behind the offensive line. I can't believe that, Brooks.
We are very
He's in
sorry, Danny Woodhead.
If you're in a PPR league,
We
he
love
is a
Danny
great later
I would
value.
rate him around 16.
Well, go. There you go.
All right, quarterback rankings. We'll try not to forget anybody today. Just for you listening, look, the rankings are for 6-point touchdown leagues. You can see breakdowns on the website of all of our rankings at fantasyfootballers.com. They are updated frequently. People ask this question about the Ultimate Draft Kit, about the cheat sheets in the Ultimate Draft Kit. They want to know, look, how often are these things updated? They're updated almost daily, pretty much daily. I mean, there is some sort of change that happens. We're always digging in. We're always looking at adjusting players.
We talk to a beat writer, and we hear something about, inside scoop, and we make a change.
Also, when we change our projections, cheat sheets, they're updated.
Yeah, automatically.
Instantaneously. All right, Matthew Stafford comes in at number 11 on the QB rankings. Ben Roethlisberger, number 12. Let's talk about these guys. I love Matthew Stafford this year. I have him at 10. He's just consistent. You can count on 4,200-plus yards. He's been consistent in terms of games played. Early in his career, that wasn't the case. You were worried about that. Now he just comes out, lights it up. Somebody's going to benefit outside of Golden Tate in this offense because you no longer have Anquan Bolden. We've talked about Kenny Golladay. Marvin Jones, I think, is still a sleeper and a value. Matthew Stafford, Jason, you have him the highest of our rankings at 9. What is the story with Matt?
Yeah,
With Snapback.
with Matty Snapback. Look, Matty Snapback has been a guy that has proven before, kind of like, we talked about Andy Dalton. He has done it before where you've gotten top production from him at the quarterback position. And it used to be one of those things where people were afraid when he lost Megatron and Calvin Johnson would go away that he would, return back to regress to a guy that doesn't throw touchdowns and isn't valuable enough. The reason we like, or especially I like Matthew Stafford, is because this is a team that can't run the ball. And this is a team that uses their running backs in a way that helps their quarterback, a la Drew Brees and the Saints. They pass to Theo Riddick. They're going to pass to Amir Abdullah. When they get around the goal line, Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick, they might be receiving touchdowns as opposed to banging the touchdowns in through the middle of the line. Now you have a wide receiving core that is, I think, the best he's had in a while. Now, he did lose Anquan Bolden, but Kenny Golladay, the smooth routes of Kenny G, he's looking like a really good rookie. You have a year 2 with Marvin Jones, which I think is a real value to have him in the system. Maybe he won't disappear as well. Golden Tate and a healthy Amir Abdullah. There's just a lot of weapons here. I think the offense scores enough points to be really valuable for fantasy, and it's not going to come through the running game, which means Matthew Stafford will be a value.
You've reminded me of something that I didn't mention. For those of you that have entered the listener league, the entries, we're basically deciding on those today and sending out the winners. And look, everybody can't make it in.
Oh, my goodness.
The reason I thought about that is there was an English teacher that sent in a video, and he's started the Jay Grizz School of Literacy and Grammar. And he had a Jay Grizz on site, and
I believe he had my face with an X through it. We're going to protect the world.
International sign for no.
Yeah.
There were incredibly high investment entries into the Listener League, and we can't thank you enough for it. Even if you were not selected, which most people weren't because we could only pick a few people, we watched them, we enjoyed them, we were super impressed with you.
Laughed around the office.
There's joy in my heart from your videos.
And a sincere,
amazing,
sincere thank you. I mean, just like that, Review-a-Saurus said, these listeners are absolutely incredible. You guys are the best.
All right, before we talk Ben Roethlisberger, and by we I mean Mike because he has him at number 6.
Yep.
What? Hot fire. Let's go ahead and thank today's sponsors, keeping the lights on. Bombfell, thanks for sponsoring the show. Guys, do you like shopping for clothes?
No.
Hate it.
No, neither do I. Look, there's an easier way to get better clothes, and that's Bombfell. It's an online personal styling service that helps men find the right clothes. And this is cool. I've had this experience. I've gotten my Bombfell packages in the mail multiple times. It's always great to get that package in the mail. And what they do is they pair you with a stylist, and you basically report on the things you like and the things you don't like, and they refine your style to exactly what fits you, exactly what looks good on you. And look, you're in total control. You only pay for the clothes that you keep. You can send them back. You get something in the mail, you don't like it, you send it right back. You only pay for what you keep, and you can receive clothes once every month, twice, every 2 months, every 3 months. Look, they're on your side. Bombfell's on your side. They don't make money unless you find something you want to keep. So love them. Best of all, we've negotiated with Bombfell to get our listeners a special offer of $25 off your first purchase. That's a big one. Go to bombfell.com/footballers. That's Bombfell, spelled BOMBFELL.com/footballers.
And a huge shout-out to the NFL Game Pass. This is a tool, a website, a portal, a web app that we have used for years at the Fantasy Footballers. People always saying, how do you watch all the games? You can't watch all the games live at the same time. And we've used the NFL Game Pass to rewatch not only the same game, but you can watch it from every angle. You want to watch the coaches film or the All-22 where you could see the wide receivers running the routes? You could do that on Game Pass. You want to watch all the plays of a single player and say, hey, how did this guy look? You can do that on NFL Game Pass. We were even talking with our editorial team, like, okay, we want to watch all the preseason games, but we're not even sure. Are they like all broadcast? And we're like, wait, NFL Game Pass, you can watch all the out-of-market games live while it's happening. They've got the condensed games too, which is my favorite.
Yeah, that's great.
Where you can watch the entire game, every single snap in 45 minutes or under because they take out every pause in the action. So it's great. Plus, right now, NFL football it's happening. NFL Game Pass has it, and you can get a free trial right now. All you do is go to NFL.com/fantasyfootballers. That's NFL.com/fantasyfootballers for a free trial. You will love it, I guarantee.
All right, let's talk 12 through 24 quarterbacks. We just talked about Matt Stafford. Let's go through Big Ben and Jameis Winston now, who come in at 12 and 13. I think people were surprised. they were mad even that we didn't talk Jameis Winston yesterday in the top 10. But look, he's not in our top 10, so that's why we didn't talk about him.
He's too high right now.
Ben Roethlisberger, Mike has him at 6. This offense could be explosive. We've seen Big Ben in 2014. He was the number 5 overall fantasy quarterback. But look, there's a long track record here. Going back to 2007, only 4 of those years has he finished inside the top 10. But, Mike, you believe this could be the year he does it again?
I do. And what's difficult about projections, right, is we go through all the numbers and we project what their final stat line will be. Ben Roethlisberger's his final stat line for me puts him at the number 6 quarterback. Does that mean I would draft him as the number 6 quarterback? No, and that's why it's fantastic for the Foot Clan that they're listening to this show and understanding that it's all about roster construction and knowing that Ben Roethlisberger is, in fact, almost unstartable on the road. But I believe the addition of Martavis Bryant makes that different. I think you can actually play him on the road when Martavis is on the field, and you know that those home games he can go off for 5 touchdowns at any given moment. His offense is unbelievable. His wide receiver core and Le'Veon Bell. You guys, I don't know if you realize this just off the top of your head. What's the career high rushing touchdowns in one season for Le'Veon Bell?
Wow, I'm gonna guess 10.
8. 8 is the most rushing touchdowns he's ever had, and that was his first and second year. So they don't. That's not the name of Le'Veon Bell's game, is getting those 16 rushing touchdowns like Zeke. But they're gonna score a bunch of touchdowns, and that comes through Ben Roethlisberger. So I think by the end of the year he's going to be fantastic. If he drops in your draft, then I'm okay picking him up. I won't take him as the number 6 guy, but I think that he's just going to have monster weeks. And best ball, I love Big Ben.
One of the things that surprised me the most about Big Ben, when we were data mining for the Ultimate Draft Kit consistency charts, and I'm putting all these things together over the last 3 years going through the data, Ben Roethlisberger gets his rap, especially from us, of being very inconsistent, right? Because of the home and away splits. And while his road games are games where you usually don't start him, I was blown away to see this stat. Over the last 3 years, when you're only talking games played, and we have to keep in mind Ben Roethlisberger averages missing about 2 games a year, but in the games that he plays, there's only 3 players who have a higher percentage of finishing as a top 12 quarterback. One of them was Dak Prescott. We talked about him already. He's only had that rookie year where he was just consistent but not blow up. The other 2, Andrew Luck, Aaron Rodgers. Then it's Ben Roethlisberger. So when he's playing, especially if he's playing at home, he's probably got as good a shot as anybody to be a top 12 option. If you can grab him and pair him with another quarterback, I really do like Ben Roethlisberger. He usually gets overdrafted, though, in most home leagues.
Yeah, I guess for context, Ben Roethlisberger right now is a 9th-round draft pick, and so that's
I like him there.
Quite a value.
And that's what I mean. If he drops, there aren't a lot of quarterbacks who have the potential to throw for 5,000 yards.
Right.
And Big Ben, with this wide receiver core, is one of them.
All right, is Jameis Winston one of them? Yeah, Deshaun Jackson to the offense. He was only a QB1 6 times last year. Jameis Winston, just over 4,000 yards, 18 picks, and 28 touchdowns. But the excitement for Winston, it's through the roof. You guys right now, you have him at 10. I got him at 16. What is the effect of Deshaun Jackson when it comes to Jameis Winston's stat lines and what he can do in fantasy?
You know that Deshaun Jackson will help him on a handful of weeks, and the hope is that Deshaun Jackson helps out Mike Evans, which ipso facto helps out Jameis Winston. Jameis, he's thrown for over 4,000 yards his first 2 years, which is great, but talk about someone who's been inconsistent. You have a solid – not even solid. A decent start to the year, but then the final 6 games wasn't a quarterback won a single time, and that included some games against the Saints, right? And it's very frustrating to have Jameis Winston where you think that, okay, this is a great matchup. I know I can plug in Jameis Winston, but then it doesn't work out because they are a defensive team. They want to run the ball. So if the game script is not going in a way that they are trailing, then Jameis is going to be limited in his attempts.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to bring that up. We were doing that sleeper bot league where we start 2 quarterbacks. Jameis was the highest on my rankings, but I chose not to take him there because he's harder to predict. His games don't usually come when you think they're going to come. So I ended up bypassing him there. I do worry. I mean, this is a quarterback that has not yet in his 2 years finished in 6-point scoring as a quarterback 1 yet. There's a lot of projecting forward, but it's a team that does not want to be a pass-first team, and that, I think, limits his upside.
You guys see that?
Also, lots of mistakes still. So, I mean, those interceptions have to come down.
Delvin broke his
saw that.
fibula.
Saints.
They fired fired all of their orthopedics
As
who,
they
like,
should.
3 weeks ago diagnosed him with a bruise.
Yeah, he had a broken bone, and they're like,
orthopedists, that is.
Yeah,
I think I said
well.
orthopedics.
That's what Jordan Reed has.
Yeah. Orthotics. Those are
dang it, man.
Those
We're
are
messing up all over the place.
well, someone's got braces.
Why?
That's all I know. Someone's wearing braces.
Oh my good. Yeah, that was a misdiagnosis. They put braces on him instead of treating the leg, and that
Fixes
was
teeth.
Fool!
all right. 14-15.
Why'd you hire an orthodontist?
Mark, we are experts when it comes to the medical field.
Yeah.
Look no further than the 3 of us.
Yeah, if you're listening, this is your first time and you didn't realize all 3 of us are medical doctors.
Now you know.
Now you know. For sure. That's
14-15. Marcus Mariota, Cam Newton on our quarterback rankings. I have Cam Newton at 9. You do not.
No,
you
I
two
do not.
I am very optimistic. He may end up being a my guy with the 9th round ADP in PPR leagues. I think Cam Newton has every chance of returning to fantasy glory this year. I don't think the rushing yardage is going to change. I don't think his goal line presence is going to change. But he's got a ton of weapons. You guys have talked about the kind of the sleeper nature of Kelvin Benjamin, and now Curtis Samuel's back. McCaffrey. Funchess is a starter right now, but
Funchess is a guy who plays in the NFL.
And Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen
Yes.
is an indispensable weapon for Newton. And you know what else? He's got one of the best schedules in football. We've talked a lot about the problems that you have with Des Bryant or Alshon Jeffrey being in the East with all those corners, which, by the way, got even harder now that Darby is a part of the Eagles staff. So now Des
I didn't
adds
even
2
think
more
about
games with Darby. Look, Cam Newton's got a cakewalk of a schedule compared to a lot of other quarterbacks. He's also got a chip on his shoulder, and depending on what you believe about Cam,
That's a chip in his shoulder.
That's actually Delvin Breaux, who he gets to play against 2 times a year, or doesn't now.
Yeah, so
That's his leg.
yeah, that's his leg, bro.
Well, no, I'm just chipping the
Tomato,
bone.
tomato,
Just
tomato.
trying to, call it back.
Okay, I like
Who you
Newton.
gonna
I like
call?
Newton a lot more than Mariota. You guys have them very similarly ranked. So talk about what you like and don't like about those 2 players.
I like Mariota over Newton. The reason why is because both of these players, I think, can provide a lot of value running the ball. But Mariota is young, is still, actively able to run. I think the team is not worried about him yet the way that, because of last year's injuries with Cam Newton, because of Cam Newton's age, years in the league, this is usually, Mike, you've talked about this, where those massive rushing numbers of yardage and attempts tend to fall off for rushing quarterbacks. And I don't think he is a good enough pocket passer to be a superstar fantasy relevant player. Now, Mariota, on the other hand, he doesn't rely as much already on the running game. He has the capabilities, but now you add in weapons that he has not had. I think Eric Decker is going to make a huge difference for him. And now you have 2 rookie wide receivers who both are, one was a top 10 pick in the NFL draft, and the other has just looked outstanding in preseason. I think he has the weapons and a great offense.
Should
a great
add, that's
offensive
Corey Davis
line.
and Taywan Taylor.
Yes, Corey Davis and Taywan Taylor. Mariota to me is a much higher upside guy than my rankings indicate. Right now, I've got him at 15.
But if you had to say which of those 2 players, Cam Newton or Marcus Mariota, could end up a top 5 player, wouldn't you give that to Cam Newton?
If you're going top 5, then I would. say it's Cam.
Cam's done it 4 times.
Yes.
In the top 5.
Yes, and if you're going completely for top 5, it will be Cam. But I think Mariota has a better chance to be a quarterback 1.
Interesting. He had the super great streak last year from basically weeks 5 through 9, where he finished the top 12 receiver every single week. He had a very nice
quarterback.
Yeah, that makes sense. He plays quarterback, so that's where he finished. He had a great matchup.
Yeah, his schedule was great for there, but
great offensive line.
You take Marcus Mariota, who was the most efficient passer inside of the 10. He completed, or he threw a touchdown on almost 61% of his passes inside the 10. That's far and away number 1. Now, if you want to refer to that as an outlier, I can understand how you want to make that argument. But now the team has added Eric Decker, one of the most prolific touchdown-scoring wide receivers of the last decade. I mean, people don't realize how good Eric Decker is and how he gets open and he scores touchdowns. That's what Eric Decker does. Now put him on this team. Rashard Mathews broke out, showed what he can do, and defenses still have to worry about DeMarco Murray and a great offensive line. So I just like Marcus Mariota's potential, and he's improving. He's continuing to improve. I don't know that Cam Newton is improving anymore. I think Cam Newton is who he is now in the league, and that has me leaning to go with Mariota.
Let's talk about one of the more polarizing picks in fantasy football. At number 16 on our quarterback rankings,
this one's going to upset some people.
Derek Carr. I think the love of Derek Carr.
But Andy,
okay.
Derek Carr is like a top 10 quarterback, and he's young, and he's got a great team.
Yep.
How in the world is he 16th?
Yeah, that's a good question, voice of public opinion. I think it comes down to the stats. Does that work for you?
Yeah, okay.
I love Derek Carr. I love the Oakland Raiders. As a fan, I love rooting for him. I think he's a good NFL quarterback. I think he's a winner. I think he is a growing talent. I think he puts in the work. I think all of those things are true. But at the end of the day, the numbers haven't justified this kind of top 6, 7 quarterback that some people believe he will be. They want us to give him that respect. If you look at the top 10 quarterback episode comments that we received, a lot of them had to do with,
where's Derek Carr?
Where's Derek Carr? You're not giving this guy the respect he deserves. I think we're giving him exactly what he deserves. He's a 4,028 guy right now. He has a great offensive line that also facilitates a very good red zone offense and a good red zone rushing attack with Marshawn Lynch, last year Latavius Murray. What is the actual upside of Derek Carr?
I think the upside is tremendous. To be fair, you guys have him at 15, 18. I have him at 8. I do see him as a top 10 quarterback.
Yeah, so you really are.
I side more with the voice of public opinion.
It makes sense because
you are.
Here's a quarterback that was, 2 years ago he was the 15th ranked quarterback. Last year he was the 10th, ranked quarterback. And now
these trends continue.
Yeah, if these trends continue. I mean, 8 is clearly there. Well, it would be 5.
Yeah, it would be 5. I was like, what?
Well, 8 was my ranking, so I tried to get
actually,
I'm moving him up.
You should have gone back another year because he was 20th in 2014.
Oh, wow, you're right. 20,
then 15th,
15,
then
10th.
10th.
I mean, come
then
on.
5th,
we already
and then
know
number 1.
So here's the argument for him.
Actually 0.
He is a quarterback that has a great offense, who has rapport with his receivers. They've added a good tight end to the mix. And he has an excellent offensive line. Marshawn Lynch could very well help the passing game, and there's plenty of reason to see progress and stepping up to the next level this year. So I think you guys have him a little bit too low. Now, Mike, you always bring up really solid points. He struggles in the division, and of course the team
struggles
big time he does, and he plays this year. He's going to play all of his division teams 2 times each.
Right?
Wow. So that makes a lot of unusable games for Derek Carr. I'm not going to start him against Denver. The Chargers are going to be way, way better this year, I think, defensively. And
Chiefs
then you got
are obviously
the Chiefs.
very good.
So that is tough. But outside of those games, I think he'll score a lot of touchdowns.
And I'm looking at having him at 18, yeah, I agree. I do have him low, so I'll go back and I'll evaluate Derek Carr. But that's the problem with Derek Carr is he's borderline unusable for 6 games. And I know that people are mock drafting and maybe Carr falls a bit, but in Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going right around that 7th round. And what's nice about Fantasy Football Calculator is that gives you a much better handle on home leagues, which predominantly that's what people are playing in. So that's the caution I wanted to get out there about Derek Carr, is that he is likely to be overdrafted in your league. Now, if he falls to be one of those late round quarterback picks, then I'm fine. I'm fine going with Derek Carr, because when he's in a good matchup, he puts up points.
Send in the car.
That's what you were frantically looking for. Send in the car.
It took me a while to find it.
That's
going
right.
back a couple of years.
We got it. But so 18 is too low. He's probably going to get bumped up from there, but he's not going to. If he's a quarterback one at all, it's a fringe quarterback one for me, and that's someone I'm not paying a high draft price
Right.
for.
I will agree he is probably overdrafted right now.
Yeah, it's pretty. 609.
Sometimes sometimes when a guy is overdrafted, we tend to make the fact that he is being overdrafted bump him down even further in our rankings because of, I think, the bust potential of the value you're spending at the draft. We want to kind of warn people, hey, maybe don't reach for him around his ADP, so we bump him back a little bit too much.
All right, let's talk about 3 quarterbacks here at 17, 18, 19 that all may give you pause when sliding them into your lineup, that there may be some grimaces that take place. Tyrod Taylor, Carson Palmer, and Eli Manning in that order. Some people might be surprised that Tyrod's still there at 17 despite losing Sammy Watkins. But his dependency on Sammy Watkins, Watkins has been hurt.
He's had plenty of games without Sammy Watkins. This is not a small sample size where you go, I wonder how he'll be. Plenty of games, and his total points have been about the same with him as they have been without him. They've come in a different format.
He runs a ton.
580 rushing
yards. In the fourth
yards.
quarter, too. When the game is on the line, when this team is down, he runs the ball more often, and that gives you a healthy fantasy baseline, even in games that look like they aren't going the right direction. So many times Tyrod Taylor would come out, the line didn't look good. You'd get to the fourth quarter, and suddenly he pulled the Tim Tebow of days of old.
It's Tebow. And just for to take a look at his rushing yards. So 580 rushing yards last year. That's first. Number 2 was Colin Kaepernick, who doesn't currently have a job. Number 3 was Aaron Rodgers with 369 yards. So Tyrod has a 300-yard gap over who could be the number 2 rusher this year. I mean, I know Cam is right there as well, but and Russell Wilson. But Tyrod, when it comes to rushing quarterbacks, which in a 4-point league is going to help out a little bit more, he's usable. He's a usable candidate as a late-round quarterback.
And I would say, unlike Russell Wilson, his rushing production usually translates into rushing touchdowns.
Right. And his rushing production goes up when Sammy Watkins was off the field.
He's one of my favorite targets if you're in, if you already have Andrew Luck on your roster and you want somebody in the 12th, 13th round, starts the season against the Eagles, Ravens, and Lions. I think he's a player that you could roll out there week 1, week 2 if you have to, if Andrew Luck does miss some time, and you can get a very solid baseline of production for him. I mean, there are other targets in that category as well. But Tyrod, very reliable on the rushing yardage, and that just gives you that nice baseline. Let's go ahead and, we talked about John Brown, the receiving core in Arizona. Carson Palmer's at number 18.
Do you feel like if John Brown is the 2 and John Brown is not a factor, does Carson Palmer take a hit?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he does. And last year his touchdown percentage came crashing back to the norm after his kind of outlier season 2 years ago.
David Johnson.
But, David Johnson's going to catch the ball. He's going to have 800-plus yards through the air, most likely, and that helps Palmer. Fitzgerald will be a chain mover. But without Michael Floyd and without John Brown, you're looking at J.J. Nelson, and you're looking at Jerron Brown to provide touchdowns through the air. And I don't think that's reliable enough to say I really want Carson Palmer in there every week. He's a late-round target in the 13th round, but the story isn't, there's nothing that tells me this is going to be a lot better than last year.
I agree.
Three of the last 5 weeks, he was a top 10 quarterback. Or 3 of the last 6. I'm sorry.
Much better second half, and we've talked about that too. He got the ball out of his hands much quicker. They seem to try to put him in a position where that line and the line issues.
I was going to bring up the offensive line. That's what it will be for Carson Palmer, because this offense generally for Bruce Arians, he likes to run the ball and then go deep. And if they can't protect Carson Palmer, much like they protected him last year, then it's troubles all over again.
Yeah, Arians is the nice kind of potential for Palmer. Arians does like to take shots downfield. That's his offense is not going to change. It's just whether or not you get 16, 18 interceptions from Palmer because he doesn't have time in the pocket, or he hits on some of those throws to J.J. Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Carson Palmer and Eli Manning, they're both very similar to me. They're guys who have had top production for fantasy, both had pretty poor years last year. 2 years ago, top 10 quarterbacks. Last year, disappointed you. This year, what's going to happen? And when I look at those two teams, I see the Arizona Cardinals, with all my love for Jerron Brown, he is a downgrade over a healthy John Brown. And so I see a receiving core that might be getting worse for Arizona, whereas on the other side, Eli Manning has added Brandon Marshall.
Yes.
Sterling Shepard is healthy. They've added Evan Ingram. That is a receiving core that has gotten better. So I'm starting to lean right now. If I was in the draft and I'm looking at those two players, I might actually be leaning for the first time towards Eli, who could get it done. I do still worry that they want to be a defensive team, and they have a great defense, so they might not need to air it out. But thankfully, they can't run the ball at all.
Yeah, 2014 and 2015, he averaged about 100 attempts in the red zone and about 45 attempts inside the 10. Last year, only 67 attempts in the red zone and 29 attempts inside the 10. I mean,
I would expect that to change.
Yeah, I would expect things to return to the norm. They had the passing offense was Beckham, and he when everything is on Odell Beckham, yes, he'll be a fine fantasy wide receiver, but for the team, the offense is going to struggle. They struggled to get first downs, and now you have legitimate Brandon Marshall on the other side who can really help out on third downs.
I really want Brandon Marshall as my wide receiver too in a ton of my leagues, so that I can go get running backs early and just fall back on Marshall. Yeah, I love Jason brought it up on the show. I mean, look, they throw in the red zone. They can't outrun the ball. So, guys, I'm going to give you 20 through 24 here at the quarterback position. Pick out somebody you want to talk about, and I do want to get into the mailbag, answer some listener questions today. So, Blake Bortles comes in at number 20, Carson Wentz 21, Sam Bradford at 22, and wouldn't you know, Jay Cutler at 23.
There he is.
And Joe Flacco at 24. So 5 names there. That is Bortles, Wentz, Bradford, Cutler, and Flacco.
I'll just comment on Bortles really quick. We call him the emergency parachute because you can get him for free. He's been a quarterback one.
Does it always open
the last
on the way
2
down?
years? It doesn't always open. And this year, I mean, he was better. Once Gus Bradley was fired, he was actually better because the coaching improved. Shocking, I know. But will Blake Bortles have his –
How dare you?
Will Blake Bortles have his job in
forever.
Week 7?
You guys saw the video of Allen Robinson in practice this week?
I heard about it. I didn't watch it. But
Allen Robinson is clearly frustrated with Blake Bortles. He throws this ball that's just out of bounds, and he doesn't realize someone's recording him right next to
I did not see this video.
Right next to where the ball went out of bounds. He turns around and he's like, dude, keep the ball in bounds. And with a couple choice words after that. So I want to talk about Carson Wentz. He's a guy, when I look at these, Blake Bortles, okay, a security blanket, a parachute that might or might not open, whatever. But Carson,
whatever. If your emergency parachute may not open, whatever.
Swat.
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
it's over quick.
Not exciting. I don't really look forward to having a parachute that might or might not open. Now, Carson,
it may be like silverware and plates, like a cartoon.
But Carson Wentz to me has at least the potential to have that second-year Blake Bortles step forward, right? Blake Bortles had he was a bad rookie. Then next year, all of a sudden, Blake Bortles caught hot fire and was, the fourth quarterback.
Wait, fire in a can?
He was the fourth best quarterback
for
fantasy football.
It took forever forever for people to buy into what Blake Bortles was doing. It was a joke every week of like, oh, look, Blake Bortles did it again. You're like, oh, maybe we should pick up and play Blake Bortles. So
and that was the year Allen Robinson had his massive breakout. Allen Hurns looked good. The wide receiving core has been upgraded for Carson Wentz. So if Carson Wentz comes out and is very productive, I'm going to be picking him up. Or if you drafted him in say a 2-quarterback league, not dropping him. And I think that there's a good chance that he takes that sophomore year forward.
I'm on board entirely with you. He was part of my bold prediction article was Carson Wentz is going to have a run of games where I think he's inside that top 8 because I think the weapons, Alshon Jeffrey, Mac Hollins, Aguilar in the slot, Pumphrey and Sproles out of the backfield.
Zach Ertz.
And Torrey Smith
Zach Ertz, who we all love.
Will boost his value on a couple games.
Absolutely. All right, let's go ahead and hop into the mailbag. You ready, Mike? You got them pipes primed?
Bumblebee, bumblebee.
Mailbag.
Yeah!
Oh, man, I'm not jumping out of a plane with Blake Bortles. I'm not going to do it.
Look, we know you don't jump out of a plane with Blake Bortles or Wile E. Coyote.
Right. Those are the two. Look, if you have a question for the podcast, send them to us. Go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click Submit a Question. You can also dial our voicemail hotline. We'd love to hear from you, 302-464-TFFB. Going to jump right into a voicemail question here to kick things off in the mailbag.
Hey guys, I'm in a half-point PPR league where David Johnson, Zeke, and Le'Veon Bell are all being kept. I'm drafting first overall and have Martavis Bryant as a keeper. What I want to know is Antonio Brown still an obvious first choice, or does that stack with Martavis scare you with Big Ben's inconsistency on the road? Perhaps I should go Julio or Odell instead? Thanks.
I think that's a great question because you are in a situation where in a vacuum without Martavis, you're taking Antonio Brown. If it's me, I'm hedging. I'm not drafting two. My first two guys are not going to both be Steelers despite all the possibilities there. I think I would go, if I wanted to go wide receiver, I'd probably go Julio. And if I didn't, I'd strongly consider LaShawn McCoy.
I would, if I'm just picking out of those guys, I'm still going to take Antonio Brown. I think that.
What do you say, Jason?
Yeah, I think I lean towards Antonio Brown as well. I totally get the argument, but since it was a keeper situation, you probably had really good value on Martavis Bryant, which is why you have him capped on your roster. I don't think you're going to be disappointed when you grab Antonio Brown.
Okay. All right, let's jump into another voicemail question here.
Hey, fellas, this is Jeff from Jersey. I got the Ultimate Draft Kit. It's amazing.
Nice.
Great job. Quick question on quarterbacks. I know you guys like to draft quarterbacks late. In my league, it's a 10-team half-point PPR.
That's all we got.
Let me answer the question for him. My
name is Jeff.
Why don't you finish the question
and
then answer the question?
It's a half-point PPR, but we get 6 points per quarterback touchdown. So should I bump up the quarterbacks because of that? That's the usual question we get. And if that's the question,
what do you do?
No. In fact, I would say you can bump quarterbacks down even further in a 10-team league. You'll have so many quality, I'm talking really good choice matchups. You'll find Tyrod Taylor on the waivers every single week, and you could play him against a team that is a predictable matchup where Tyrod Taylor is going to have a top 3 week, and you got him off waivers. That's if you don't land, one of those guys who has the potential like an Andy Dalton or a Mathews Stafford super late in the draft that just ends up as a top 5 quarterback all year.
When I'm in a 10 or 8 team, so you're talking small league, I frequently get the question of quarterback, tight end. Do I go in early on them because it's a smaller league? It's no for quarterback, but if I'm in an 8 or 10 team, I play more aggressive with trying to get Gronk.
Sure.
So like the second round, I'm perfectly fine taking Gronk there.
All right, Keeper League Pickle. That's the name of this question from Dalsey in Melbourne.
Disgusting.
Delicious.
Melbourne, Australia.
No, pickles.
Bonjour.
Pickles. Oh, what? Oh.
Yeah.
Bonjour.
You don't like pickles, though.
Well, because no one should.
Pickles are amazing.
Good pickles are great.
Bad pickles are bad.
Bad pickles are, get out of here with that nonsense.
No, you're close.
Bad
pickles are bad. Great pickles are bad.
Oh, we're near the answer. All right, buongiorno, boys. In a full-point PPR, would you keep Jordan Reed, Ty Montgomery, or Jordan Howard?
All three will cost a 14th-round pick.
Howard.
Yeah, it's Jordan Howard.
Absolutely.
Easy peasy.
He also says, cheers, you guys are legends.
Oh, stop it. You're a legend. Australia, everyone's heard of it.
Did you just give credit to Australia?
Yeah.
As a whole?
As a whole. Country. It's legendary.
Here's
You're
a little
the only
story
country
for you.
That's a continent.
Here's
Incredible.
a little story to highlight our intelligence. We are keynoting at the Fantasy Sports Show.
Oh, we're bringing this up.
in Canada. And this takes place next week, okay?
Get your tickets if you're
Get your tickets. And if you're interested in going, we can hook you up with a ticket. We've got a deal on tickets, so just hit us up on Twitter. We'll find a way to get you to the Fantasy Sports Show. It's thefantasysportshow.com.
So long as you have one thing.
Yeah, turns out Canada's not part of the United States, and because of that, you need a passport.
Yeah, we
knew it wasn't part of the U.S. So that's not the part.
Step one.
But if you Google, do you need a passport to go to Canada? Google tells you no.
This was the equivalent of typing in an address in the Google navigation search and being driven off a cliff somewhere. we just 6 months ago when we agreed to this, 6 months ago, we did a cursory Google. That's the level of intelligence that was coming out of this studio. And turns out you do need a passport, and we found this out yesterday, and there are only 4 facilities in the entire United States that can get you one fast enough. And luckily we had one in Tucson, Arizona. So Mike and myself and Brooks had to drive down to Tucson for three-hour drive yesterday. People wanted to know why the show came out early. It's because we had to record it late the night before because we had to do this day trip to Tucson to get a passport. But I'm happy to report we will be at the Fantasy Sports Show.
We did it, America.
We did it.
So you better be there if you're up near Toronto.
We paid the iron price for our mistake, but
make sure you got a passport.
We're going to be there.
Foot Clan, want to remind you about the NFL Game Pass. Every throw, every catch, every 4th and inches, whatever your favorite game is, NFL Game Pass has got it. Better yet, they've got you covered for this year's Action 2. That includes live, out-of-market preseason games, full game replays, condensed games with all the action packed into 45 minutes. If it's NFL football and it happened, NFL Game Pass has got it. So kick off the 2017 season with a free NFL Game Pass trial. Sign up now. This is the important part, Foot Clan. Sign up now at NFL.com/fantasy footballers.
Not the fantasy.
Just /fantasy footballers.
Okay, I do want to give you a lay of the land the rest of this week. Tomorrow we're going to jump into the tight ends. We're going to get through all the tight ends we can tomorrow on the show. Our ranking shows wrap up tomorrow. Friday, very excited about this episode. Mark it on your calendars. We've got a tips and tricks episode on Friday, the top 10 tips and tricks for fantasy football. These are the things the show is built on because you're all in different leagues. We don't play in the same leagues with you. You got different scoring settings. You got different people you play with, different league sizes. It's more than just breaking down the rankings. It's more than just breaking down the stats. It's more than reading you an Excel sheet. It's about learning the ins and outs of how to play fantasy football week to week. You don't just win it at your draft. You don't just win it on the waiver wire. It's a bunch of little it's the 1,000 cuts thing, right? But in a good way.
Let's go with like the 1,000 planks to build a house.
Sure.
I'll go with like top tips and tricks to win your fantasy football.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is. So that's Friday's episode. Very excited to get into that. So keep it right here. Subscribe on iTunes and check out the website. There's a huge forum at the website. Fantasy football players, it's filling up. Tons of questions, people talking, joining leagues. That's over at thefantasyfootballers.com. If you go over to the forums and hang out with us, it's always a good time. So make sure you tune in, and we will be back tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
There will be a best ball draft today. Play draft. Get your account ready. Playdraft.com/ballers. It's supposed to be yesterday, but I was in Tucson, so it didn't happen. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.